Welcome back, welcome back. As we heard earlier on from Lord Levy, the Palestinian crisis continues to demand the world's attention. Tony Blair, as we said, will become the quartet's Middle East envoy, yet another point that warring Palestinian factions, Hamas and Fatah, disagree upon. Hamas has spoken out against the idea of Mr. Blair's appointment, calling him dishonest and unhelpful in solving the decades-long conflict, but President Abbas, also leader of Fatah, welcomed it. With Gaza and the West Bank now split between the two groups, how can anyone make real progress and move forward with the peace process? Joining me now from our studios in Washington, D.C. to tell us what should happen next and what may happen next is Nadia Hijab from the Institute for Palestine Studies. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you.
As we heard there, we have a situation, a welcome from Fatah and a non-welcome from Hamas. First of all, what's your reaction? Where do you stand on this one, the appointment of Tony Blair?
Well, you know, it's both the Tony Blair himself as well as the mission he's been given are problematic as far as the Palestinians are concerned. During his tenure, he's been very pro-Israeli. But also, I think if the last few years have shown us anything, it's the impossibility of having a government under conditions of military occupation. The Palestinians don't actually control anything, not their land, not their water. Anyone who wants to go in and out of any of the little Bantustans that now constitute the West Bank has to get permission from Israel. So, you know, it's a bit of a farce to talk about a government under occupation.
And so what could happen to improve that situation? What needs to be done, and can it get done?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, none of the core issues have changed, so what needs to be done is the same thing that should have been done any time in the last 40 years, which is an end to Israeli settlements and then withdrawal of dismantling of the settlements and withdrawal of their military troops. What people have tried to do in the last few years since the Oslo Accords is tinker around the edges. And so slightly improving, lifting some barriers, lifting some checkpoints, handing aid to Palestinians, that's not going to bring us any solution. And in fact, both the United States and Israel want to say that they want to support Abbas, but everything we've seen in the last 3-4 days has undermined him, because Israel has said it will release some of the Palestinians' tax money. But that's like a slap in the face. I mean, it's the Palestinians' money. You're going to release some of it. You're going to release it in dribs and drabs. They've also said they will release 250 Palestinian prisoners. But, you know, there's something like 10,000 Palestinian prisoners. And finally, the Israeli military has attacked both Gaza and the West Bank, just as Abbas has said that he wants militias to disarm. So none of the Palestinian militias, whether Fatah or Hamas, you know, would be willing to give up arms if they're going to get attacked.
Is the first step, though, for Hamas and Fatah to get together and have a combined front? And is that even possible?
Well, you know, it's been being called for by Saudi Arabia, by Egypt, by Jordan. And also Ismail Haniyeh has called for it. And I don't think there's any escape from the Palestinians under occupation coming back together. The tragedy, of course, is that they had a unity government. The evidence is that the United States deliberately did not support the unity government, according to a leaked report that was leaked in The Guardian a few days ago from the UN Special Coordinator, Alvaro de Soto. In his report, he noted several times that, for example, when Hamas was first elected, they suggested a unity government, but the Americans said no. When Saudi Arabia, which is actually one of America's closest allies in the region, managed to broker a unity government in February, the Americans did not lift the financial restrictions on dealing with the Palestinian Authority. So, I mean, we have here a superpower that's taken sides in an internal Palestinian conflict, and I think that needs to stop before the Palestinians can reunify and before there can be any progress.
But Nadia, just listening to you and the list of points that you have to make and care about, you do sound as though you're reconciled to the fact that there will be very little progress towards a Palestinian state, and you're just profoundly pessimistic about the future. Would that be fair?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm reconciled. No, I mean, I think it's a terrible situation, and what I think is really tragic is none of the people who've died, who've been killed in the last few months, or indeed in the last few years, need to have died, because, you know, the broad lines of a settlement between Israelis and Palestinians has been very clear for a long time. What you need now is the political will to have Israel withdraw its troops and to have a state. I'm actually, you're right, I am pessimistic in the short term that we'll see anything because there's no political will. But in the medium term, I'm more optimistic.
Well, that's good. Let's hope there is that optimistic progress and peace comes to the Middle East. Thank you very much, Nadia, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And now back here in the studio in London, we turn to Pakistan, where President Musharraf has been under increasing pressure over the last few months due to a rather ham-fisted attempt to fire the Chief Justice, combined with increasing popular intolerance with the military leader. With his term expiring at the end of this year, Musharraf is determined, it seems, to hold on to power, but the Pakistani constitution prohibits him from continuing as president unless he steps down as army chief, although Pakistani constitutions have been known to be changed. Joining me today to tell us how much longer Pakistan can survive, led by a military government, is Aisha Siddiqi, author of the controversial book, as people always describe it as, Military Inc., Inside Pakistan's Military Economy. How military is Pakistan's economy and politics?
Well, military's been in power. I mean, 60 years in Pakistan, 60 years of history, it has been directly or indirectly in power for almost half of the period. You know, that's the political role. In April 2004, President Musharraf also made some changes by establishing the National Security Council, which is on the pattern of the Turkish National Security Council, which basically gives military and its 4 important generals a role in policy making. They're no longer subservient agents of the government, but they are equal partners. So that's one. Economy, they have grown. I mean, the economy, which was started in 1954, has expanded. They are into the military is into the 3 major sectors of the economy, that is agriculture, manufacturing industry and service industry. They control 1/3 of heavy manufacturing and about 6 to 7% of private sector assets.
And what about the forthcoming situation? If Musharraf wants to continue, can he, will he? And some people write about the fact that the military, as well as anybody else, are getting upset with Musharraf, and the military might somehow oust this military man. Is that possible?
It doesn't seem likely at the moment. The only problem there is not just Musharraf. The problem is the behavior of the political parties and political leadership. If they are willing to play ball with him and do adjustments as looks possible, and there has been a lot of discussion of the PPP having an agreement or arrangement of some kind with Musharraf, then he might survive. I mean, there is a possibility. And what is happening on the streets of Pakistan is a middle-class movement. It's not still a popular movement because the political parties are holding back.
And what about in terms of where it goes from here? You say the PPP, Benazir Bhutto, might in a way bail him out by taking over?
I think the only thing
but tolerated by him or tolerated by the army?
I think what Benazir is sticking to is that she's not accepting him in uniform. what she's saying is, you take off the uniform, you'll get you re-elected as president. That's her issue. But actually what stands between disaster, a full-blown movement, and Musharraf is Benazir Bhutto. And if she bails him out, if he kind of considers that an arrangement can be sought with her, he can save himself. He can save himself from the movement in the street.
So could we see what you would define as democracy in Pakistan sometime in the next decade?
Perhaps in another 5 to 10 years. I don't see it blossoming right now. I mean, there will be, it's the military which has interest to stay in power, and it's the elite, you know, the politicians, the important people. It's about redistribution of resources, and all those people who want to kind of control the resources of the state and the nation want a very authoritarian system. So this authoritarian system, in fact, will continue.
Right. So that, like in many different subjects we've been discussing today, the watchword seems to be that people are going to need patience. That seems to be the thing. Thank you very much for
Thank you
being
for
with us
inviting.
today. That's all for this week. Next week I'll be presenting a special programme looking back at some of the highlights from the past 3 or 4 months of Frost Over the World. Do hope you'll join us then. Top of the day, good day.